Meanwhile, just outside of Gotham City.
Bat antenna deployed. Atomic microphones to power.
Check. 1, 2. Testing.
Bat computer online. And processing.
Affirmative.
Audio tapes to speed. Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to POWCAST. Transmitting.
Greetings, citizens of Gotham, and welcome to the first ever pilot episode, maiden voyage of the Retro Cool Nerd POWCAST, a retro look at all things cool and nerdy. I am the Retro Cool Nerd, Jimmy the Gent, broadcasting from my secluded study located deep inside the walls of stately Wayne Manor. You might also, or should I say hopefully, might recognize me as one of the co-hosts of the Saturday Morning Serial podcast. Well, those boys, Marky and Grimshay, over at the aforementioned Saturday Morning Serial Studios, have finally challenged me to come up with my own podcast, and I said, hold my batarang, boys. Now, since we can all agree that there can never be enough Batman-themed podcasts out in the multiverse, I slid down into the cave and got right to work. My love of the original 66 Batman TV show that I grew up with has also led me to present this, a celebration of all things retro, cool, and a little nerdy, mostly through the lens of the 66 TV show. Throughout my adventures as a mild-mannered Comic-Con reporter for BleedingCool.com, I have met and befriended various members of the Hollywood elite, stars, voice actors, animation directors, and all sorts of pop culture fans and experts. They'll all be stopping by for a chin wag about Batman and his friends, all with the goal of hopefully entertaining and educating you just a little bit. But I'm excited to get to our first episode of the POWCAST, featuring the 80-year celebration of the first sidekick, Robin the Boy Wonder, starring a very special guest, but more on that in just a second. As most of you listeners might know, Robin first appeared alongside Batman 80 years ago on the cover of Detective Comics number 38, way back in April of 1940. I'm sure none of you were around back then. Originally created by Bob Kane, Bill Finger, and Jerry Robinson, Robin the Boy Wonder was meant to be a bright and youthful sidekick to the Dark Knight, serving as a Watson to Batman's Sherlock Holmes, someone for Batman to talk to and help the detective figure out the clues. In addition to giving Batman someone to talk out loud to, Robin was a way to attract young readers to the DC Comics at the time, and their gamble paid off. Robin quickly garnered overwhelmingly positive critical and fan reception, doubling the already skyrocketing sales of the Batman titles that he appeared in. As one half of the dynamic duo, Robin was Batman's sidekick from 1940 through the early 1980s, until the character set aside the Robin identity and became the independent superhero Nightwing. There have been several other characters that have taken up the mantle of Robin. Most notably, there's Jason Todd, Tim Drake, Carrie Kelly from The Dark Knight Returns, Stephanie Brown, and his own son, spawned from Talia Ra's al Ghul, Damian Wayne. But for the sake of time, on our maiden voyage of this POWCAST, I'm just going to limit our conversation to Dick Grayson. Now, a lot of people have played the Boy Wonder since his comic debut on the live screen. The first to don the mask and cape was a young lad named Douglas Croft. He was in 1943's Batman serial, and then in 1949, Johnny Duncan took the role in the Batman and Robin serial. Both of these serials were 15 chapters in length, and a slightly racist look into what kids had to enjoy back then as far as superhero entertainment. So next, for Robin live action, we jump ahead to the mid-90s when Chris O'Donnell played the Boy Wonder alongside Val Kilmer in Batman Forever. And then again with George Clooney in the forgettably ice pun-laden Batman and Robin. There's still some good stuff in that movie, even if most folks don't like it. We even get Joseph Gordon-Levitt in The Dark Knight Rises, kind of plays Robin, even if it's only in name. And that brings us to the latest incarnation is Brenton Thwaites, who plays a very grown-up, very angsty, very foul-mouthed, but very badass Dick Grayson on the DC Universe's Titans. If you haven't seen that, I highly advise you to check that out. That's a pretty big list. Am I forgetting anyone? Holy Barracuda, I almost forgot. The Robin of my youth. The man who made me want to wear tights myself. Mr. Burt Ward. He's here today with us for our pilot episode of the POWCAST. He'll be joining us in just a couple minutes, but let me tell you a little bit about him. Born Burt John Jervis Jr. on July 6, 1945, he has been in show business since he was a young toddler, and with a career that is as long and distinguished as my bat pole, Burt is arguably best known for playing Robin the Boy Wonder over the years. Starting on January 12, 1966, he first took the world by storm playing the Boy Wonder on the hit TV series Batman, followed quickly by the smash theatrical film of the same name. In 1977, Burt voiced his half of the dynamic duo on the Saturday morning animated series The New Adventures of Batman. In 1979, he shaved his legs and put on the tights for what would be the last time in the gut-wrenching 2-episode pilot for The Legends of the Superheroes. One was titled The Roast, and the other one was titled The Challenge. They're pretty bad by almost anyone's metric, but still hold a pretty special place in my heart. He also voiced Robin on The Simpsons, and in 2016, Burt reunited with his longtime friend and co-star Adam West to once again portray the dynamic duo in the animated film Batman Return of the Caped Crusaders. They got together once again in 2017 for Batman vs. Two-Face. Two pretty good movies. Most recently, in 2019, as his Earth disappeared around him, Burt uttered the famous phrase, "Holy Crimson Skies!" on the live-action CW television crossover event, Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now, he likes to be known as the Canine Crusader. In 1994, Burt and his wife Tracy founded the charitable organization called Gentle Giants Products, which rescues giant breed dogs such as Great Danes and some smaller breed dogs as well. Burt and Tracy operate a communal home for dogs where they nurse 40 to 55 dogs at a time back to health, then put them up for adoption at a faculty in California. But I call you here today not to listen to my history lesson about Burt Ward, but to share with you my conversation with the one, the only, Boy Wonder himself, Robin. Burt was kind enough to take some time out of his busy schedule to help launch our pilot episode of the POWCAST and talk to us about his life in the tights and his life raising dogs. So, without any further ado, I give you Burt Ward.
Hello.
Great. Thank you for being so patient. I was at the other end of our property. We have 5 acres here, so it takes a little bit to get to one side to the other.
Well, that was a pretty good time for covering 5 acres, if you don't ask.
They don't call me the Boy Wonder for that.
Right? That's awesome. How are you doing today?
Fantastic, and very excited to do the interview with you. And anything you want to ask, I'm happy to talk about.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Well, this is our very first episode of the Retro Cool Nerd. We're calling it a POWCAST. And we're really appreciate you taking the time out, answer some of our questions. We're celebrating 80 years of Robin in our first episode, so who better to have Robin himself?
You're right, and you sound pretty good for being around for 80 years.
Well, I've only been around for, thankfully, a portion of those 80 years. We're mostly celebrating the character and mine and my listeners' love of all things Batman and Robin. So I'm wondering, the Robin premiered in Detective Comics number 128, March 6, 1940. 26 years later, Batman premiered January 12, 1966, and 54 years later, almost to the date, on the 9th of January, 2020, you got your star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
That's true. It only took a little over 50 years.
Right.
I tell people I am a patient person, but I don't know. 50 years sounds like a long time to wait.
Oh, yeah, I think maybe a lot of people might not have waited that long. What was it like? Share with me, if you don't mind. So after such a long haul, looking out over that crowd, I was there in the press pool as you received your award. So as you were receiving it, I'm wondering, what's that feeling like of looking at generations of fans, of celebrities, all these people here for you for one day to celebrate what you've done for Hollywood and with your charity. What's that like, looking into all those faces?
You know, it's a great feeling. It warms your heart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think of all of these people as part of what I would call our Batman family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's and I don't know if afterward I certainly, if I knew, I don't know if you were able to come around the corner to the special event that we put on in the afternoon at the Hollywood Museum.
Yes, I did make it up for the Batusi party, and
that's right. There you go. And my wife and I had a great time with that. We had people. In fact, we showed, as you know, some videos, and we got people from the Wailing Wall dancing the Batusi. All of this, of course, for world peace and to try to tell people, hey, take a break from all the stress and all the strife. And I mean, my gosh, our country has become so divided that, you know, let's take a break and dance the Batusi, have some fun, and, you know, try to find something in common with other people and make a better world for all of us. In any event, we had quite a few videos that had come into us from various parts of the world, you know, from Scotland and Australia. And actually, there's quite a few more that we're just now getting from people that are really celebrating in many countries simultaneously. And this is the first of hopefully many events over, you know, one each year that we can keep encouraging, trying to bring more people into the fold with the goal of making a better world for all of us to live in.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. So that's hopefully going to be an annual event.
Yes.
Very nice.
And you know, it really started off pretty good, and it was pretty hard. I got to tell you something, to start getting people from other countries to, you know, participate and get their videos, and you know, it's so funny because a lot of these people had their own costumes, Batman, Robin, villains. You know, it was a great it was a great thing, and my wife put that on. Tracy did an amazing job putting that together. I really was wondering if that was too much of a thing for her to take on, but it was a terrific event, and so many people. In fact, right now we're just editing, taking this long because of so many videos coming in from all over the world, editing it together, and we're finally going to release it like on the internet as like a 30-minute kind of a special.
Really awesome, I think, to have been a part of that, and for you guys to pull that together. I've never seen anybody kind of pull together, you know, just in such a fashion, with underneath the Batman banner, if you will, with the Batusi.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll tell you, we had a lot of the top Warner Brothers executives there. We had a great time. The heads of several of the legal departments were there, and I mean, everybody is like a big family. And you know, I have this long-term contract with Warner Brothers, and they've been great. And the people at DC Comics, which is one of the divisions, you know, that put all the Batman comics out, and you know, and I've done some special stuff for there. I currently on their streaming service, I do an introduction of a lot of the shows that they've done. I've done quite a bit of introductions for that.
That's the DC Universe, Burt, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And it's so funny because when I went in to film this, I thought, well, it's one of these things where, you know, you say, hi, I'm Burt Ward, and, you know, here's a show that they produced in, and this and that, you know, like 2 or 3 sentences. I'm telling you, these were like 3 pages, single space of dialogue. I was doing, I think, like almost 5 minutes of pure dialogue to explain all the details because, you know, they're very fan-oriented. And the people that really are into comic books, and, I mean, they want to know this and that and and it's so funny, throughout the years of me making personal appearances, I always had people come up to me and ask me questions that I couldn't figure out. You know, like, oh, I remember that Joker show, The Joker is Wild. I said, oh, yeah, I remember that. And remember when you were fighting those, there were 6 villains. You know what I mean? And well, what were the name of the stuntman? Well, I don't remember the name of the stuntman. You know, but people are real dedicated fans. You know what I mean? Really dedicated.
Yeah, I recently enjoyed a couple. I think it was last week. The piece that they had that you did about Robin, the 80 years of Robin celebration, And I thought that was pretty dense. There was a lot of material there. There's a lot of information, but you handled it like a pro. You made it look easy.
Oh, well, thank you. Now, I'm trying to figure out, there was one that was done by Warner Brothers, and then there's another one that we did for BBC in the UK, and I don't know which one that was. And then I did another one, a third one, for Australian television that was really in-depth.
Wow.
So what's really interesting is, in other words, it's not just a U.S., celebration of the 80 years. It's a worldwide celebration.
Yeah, what is that? What's that like when you go? Or I don't know if you go overseas physically these days, but when you talk to fans, say, I know England has a very big fan base and Australia has a very big fan base. What's it like to talk to fans from other countries that still share the same passion as we do over here in the States?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, it's not just limited to the English-speaking countries. This is worldwide. I mean, Batman was shown in 104 countries worldwide. And by the way, I have this new technique that my wife actually she figured out, and it's very complex, but we are now able to do virtual appearances, okay? And let me tell you why it is fantastic. Because there are places around the world that I'm just not going to go,
Sure.
But by doing this virtually, and what it consists of is there's a special technology that is it could be connected to a giant 85-inch television, okay? And what happens is people can come and meet me. All right, now granted, you can't shake hands because it's through television,
right?
And and it's not 100%, in person. But in a way, it is in person, because in the past, I would sign an autograph for someone, and then, they would leave, and then afterwards, I guess they would show their family and friends that autograph, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we can use the technology to not only sign an autograph in the same Sharpie pen that I use to sign a color photo, but the same color photo that is printing out with my actual signature as I'm signing it. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's something. Yeah.
So that they're getting it's done, through the internet.
Mm-hmm.
When it's signing it with exactly my signature with the same pen that I use on the same photograph that they would be getting. But there's an additional benefit. The additional benefit is when we're doing this virtually, and they're talking to me on the screen, all right, their image shows up in the top left corner of the screen. In other words, when they're talking to me, they can see themselves speaking to me, and we can produce a digital video of that meeting. So when they leave, they're not just leaving with an autographed photo. They're leaving with a digital video that they can, put out on the internet. They can show their family or friends. It's like a great way to show that they really did meet me, and I got to meet them, and they see themselves on the screen, and it's a personal conversation that is recorded that through all these years of making personal appearances, over 50 years, unless there was somebody that came up with a camera, and unless the place that I was working allowed it, which most of them didn't,
mm-hmm.
there wouldn't be any videos of me meeting people. But now everybody can have one. So it really, when you consider it, and also we're going to be putting out some really special collector's items, not just a photo, but really special things that are all mounted, and it becomes like a big presentation that people can put up on their wall, scenes from the show, commentary, signed autograph photos,
mm-hmm. And you
great stuff.
And you said, is that something that you're working on, or is that up and running right now? Is that something that you're doing?
Well, we're working on it, but we already have tested it, and it is up and running. And it's now a matter of getting, a situation where we can have somebody go to that location, or somebody in the location that we send the printer to and the autograph, the photos that are going to be autographed,
mm-hmm.
and get them set up with this special electronic equipment, which is not too big of a deal. It's actually fairly simple. and easy to do, but the technology is state of the art, and it was never here until the last couple years to even be able to do this. Now it's going to open the door for not just me, but for celebrities and people all over the world to make virtual appearances. Every hot celebrity will be able to appear anywhere in the world, this way, and be able to do this where they can have autographed photos, they can have videos of their event, if they choose to go that deep into it.
Mm-hmm.
I've done so many appearances, probably more than any other actor. I was on the road for 25 years. I mean, altogether, like almost 50 years, but for 25 of those years, where I did 300 cities a year for 25 years. Now, you talk about living out of a suitcase.
That's a lot of moving.
That's unbelievable. Sometimes I would be in a city for 2 days, but sometimes I would hit 3 cities in 1 day. All of this was arranged as a tour, just like you have the rock stars that, make their tours. And in fact, something of interest to your listeners, a little bit of trivia, is that Adam West and I hold 8 arena records.
Oh, wow.
In the United States, more than any rock group ever held. In these, like, for example, in Detroit, Cobo Hall, 188,000 paid attendance over 1 weekend. 188,000, that's way above McCormick Place in Chicago. I mean, there are arenas around the country where we still hold those records that have never been topped because, we would make it a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday appearance. So collectively, that was more than any stars.
Sure.
Anybody's appearance there.
That's a lot of handshaking.
Only hand claps.
Well, that kind of leads me into what else I wanted to ask you about. In the, things got off to a pretty quick jump right there with the success of the show, right? You shot the first season, then you shot the movie, and kind of rolled right into the second season. And it seems like promoting it was as much of a monster or a job as it was filming the show. So was there, again, this is our first show, so we're talking about first impressions. Do you remember the first time that you were maybe out on stage in a public appearance in costume that you kind of felt overwhelmed by what was going on, like the crowd reaction, how many people were out there?
Okay, well, I do, as a matter of fact. Certain things in all of our lives are something that you don't forget. You know what I mean? They're vivid, and it's like, they're in front of you today, even though they happened years ago.
Right.
So let me give you the actual first example. When I was filming Batman, it started in September of 1965. I was filming because the show aired January 12, 1966, and it was a very complicated show to make. It was not a typical television show that had a crew of 30. We had a crew of 80 people. And the reason it was so big was because there were so many effects and so many explosions and sets and things that had to work, mechanicals and all of that stuff. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I was by far the youngest person on the set. I was 20 going on 21 at the time we started. And the closest person in age to me was Adam. He was 37. All the rest of the people on that set were, these are seasoned pros that they use, top people in camera and directing and all that stuff. And most of these men were and some women in their 50s and 60s, you know what I mean? So, and it's not quite as glamorous making a show as you might think. You basically get dressed in your costume, get all this makeup on, and go into the soundstage, and you wait 45 minutes while they light a scene, right? And then you work for 30 seconds. 30 seconds. And then you go sit down and you wait another 45 minutes, right? Well, for somebody young, as I was, 20 years old, and most guys my age were probably out, I don't know, in college. I mean, I left my third year at UCLA to do the show. But, their lives were actually probably a little bit more fun than mine was,
Yeah.
To be in this very heavy costume and hard to move and full of makeup and sitting around waiting to work, and you work for 30 seconds, and you wait another 45 minutes to work for another 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really get out until it was, I believe, March. The show aired in January, and I made my first appearance in March in Tacoma, Washington, at a store that was in what they call a strip mall. It was not an indoor mall; it was an outside kind of mall, and it was called the B&I Circus Store. And what was unique about the store, just imagine a big merchandising store that had wild animals in cages. In other words, you can be shopping for T-shirts and like the tiger, Bengal tiger. I mean, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And there were all kinds of wild animals. You know what I mean? And it was just an amazing thing. And but when I went there, because now Adam West at the time, that weekend I went up for a weekend. It was my very first personal appearance. I'd never made an appearance. Okay, so and you have to understand, if you're inside a soundstage and there's nobody your age and you don't really meet anybody, and on the weekends you're so exhausted from working 14 hours a day in that costume that you just either sleep or, you know what I mean, go lie on the beach as I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really getting a reaction from the public. You don't really know, you hear that it's very popular, but you don't know it. You don't experience it.
Right.
So at this appearance, as I found out just before the appearance that I was going to appear a Saturday and a Sunday, but I went up on a Friday. But people were on the Wednesday before the weekend appearance were literally camping out all around the mall and up to 3 blocks away from the mall that traffic couldn't get in. and the mall decided to get all kinds of security, and they rented the University of Washington football team, the first 11 guys on offense, on defense, to be like, not so much a bodyguard, just to keep order and not have all this, madness.
Mm-hmm.
They expected a large crowd. They handed out raffle tickets that exceeded that weekend of 310,000 raffle tickets.
Oh.
310,000. We couldn't get in through the front. We had to get in through the back and all of this stuff to finally get into the mall. And I had to dress into my costume on one end of this mall and then to work on the other end of this mall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And it's still like outside, you're going in a covered area, but it's still out. It's not an indoor mall. And all I can tell you is it was a really amazing experience. You just have 22 people around you trying to escort you through this crowd that even though it's on the other end of the mall, it's still a crowd.
Yeah, sure.
And a funny thing happened that I'll never forget. There were 2 elderly ladies. I was walking in my costume, always giant football players, and these 2 elderly ladies were coming the other way. Apparently they hadn't seen Batman, but they took one look at me, and one lady turned to the other and said, "Huh, damn hippie." But it was crazy. It was later reported more than $150,000 of damage to that store. Not from people fighting, just the shoving or trying to get close and knocking things off chairs, and it was a crazy weekend. And it was just me appearing there. It wasn't Adam as well.
Wow.
Later on, Adam and I, when the movie came out, the producers put together a 36-theater tour in New York City by bus. Adam and I on the bus, with 17 police on the bus, and then at each event, they have over 100 policemen. There were like 3 sit on either side of where we coming out, arms locked together, and still the crowd would push them down and push us down. I had my costume torn off 3 times. We only got to 33 of the 36 theaters because even the police said it was too dangerous. Not that somebody want to hurt us, but people were getting hurt, and we could have gotten hurt. You know what I mean? It just
sure.
bad the crowds. And what we would do is that they'd start playing the Batman movie, and they'd stop the movie, and Adam and I would come out on stage. And I'm telling you, people were wanting to tear up the seats. They just, like a riot. I couldn't conceive of what it was like.
No, I could only imagine that. That's, especially back in there with all the fervor back then, yeah.
And I'll tell you, there are some shopping malls out on Long Island that we went to where I couldn't even see into the parking lot on the other side. Honestly, it was the biggest thing I ever saw. And there was standing room only, where they thought that they had over 40,000 people standing in this parking lot. 40,000. And Adam and I were up on the stage, and it was just, it was all part of the presentation that we did over those 3 days. Mm-hmm. And it was just insane. It was like nothing that I had ever experienced before. And then, of course, you come back, and there you are on Monday morning on that cold stuff. And I had to keep a robe on to keep warm enough, because they keep these sound stages really cool and air conditioned, because at the time, you see, today's world, they have lights that are very sophisticated that aren't hot. Mm-hmm. But in those days, they had to use these giant arc lamps. Mm-hmm. And these things were like, 20 feet tall. I mean, they look like the things that when you see an event that's put on outside, and see these searchlights, mm-hmm. That are crisscrossing in the sky. Imagine those big searchlights on a 20-foot giant pole, like 3 feet thick to hold it. I mean, those things, if they ever fell over, it'd kill somebody. But because of the heat, it was just massive, the heat. They had to have massive air conditioning, on these sound stages. Mm-hmm. It was quite an event and the experience of filming was not exactly what you might have thought it was.
In addition to that, you're wearing all that wool and satin and tights, and there's not a whole lot of exposed skin for you to breathe. So you've got to be sweating up quite a storm.
Oh, I tell you, within 5 minutes there was a film of water between my legs and the tights. So I used to call them my python pants because they nearly strangled me to death. So if I can ask you, maybe you can dispel or confirm a rumor that I've heard a couple times over the years about the show. When, if you don't mind me asking, when you were filming the episode with Vincent Price and Egghead, there was the big egg fight at the end of the episode, and that was a lot of fun.
Right, and the rumor is that Adam and Vincent had maybe set aside a plan to get more eggs on you. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. They definitely did. Yeah. But the way they did it, was kind of funny, because you have to understand. Not only, the show was so immense and so successful, but it also took, I told you, 80 men to really, and some women to handle the show. And there were so many effects that, for the most part, Adam and I were basically left alone in terms of the scenes we did. Yes, they'd say, okay, well, you're at the back computer here, mm-hmm. Or you're in the Batmobile in this shot. But nobody ever told us how to say our lines or the attitude or anything. They left us alone. And that's why I believe it was so successful. One of the reasons, there were many reasons, the color and everybody put together, the villains and the costumes. Everybody mm-hmm. put their 2 cents in it and did a fabulous job. But there was a special chemistry that Adam and I had. And had we been directors, say, well, don't say it like this, do this, like they do in some television shows, it never would have had that chemistry. We were left alone. And it's so funny because Adam and I met Adam like 15 minutes before our screen test in 1965. Mm-hmm. We screen tested together. And in 5 minutes, the two of us were laughing. We got along so well. We never stopped laughing for more than 50 years. We really were friends. On some weekends, we'd go play tennis. It's not the typical, co-star relationship that you hear about in Hollywood where people don't get along. We got along fantastic. We were very good friends. Our families were friends. It was a great, fun thing, and I loved Adam. You know what I mean? He was a mentor to me, and you know, it was just a great relationship. But
can this be the ghastly end of our hero? Will Burt escape? Will he finish his stories in time? For the answers to these and many other questions, stay tuned. Same POW time, same POW channel.
We'll return after these messages.
Welcome to Hollywood History with our good friend Donelle Dadigan. Donelle is the president and founder of the world-famous Hollywood Museum in the historic Max Factor building, which is located in Hollywood at the corner of Hollywood Boulevard and Highland Avenue. I would say just about 20 steps away from the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The Hollywood Museum, which is actually inside the Max Factor building, shows off 100 years of Hollywood history, exhibiting the glamour of Hollywood, legends and stars, past and present, and even some future stars that are in the making. The Hollywood Museum exhibits a slew of screen-used costumes, props, photographs, scripts, cars, personal artifacts, posters, and different memorabilia from decades of films and TV shows. After purchasing the building in 1993, it took Donelle about 10 years of restorations to bring the Max Factor building back to its original state, and then she started filling it with collections of Hollywood's history. In our first episode of Hollywood History, Donelle starts our series by telling us about...
We opened in 2003. And it took me that long to restore the building. I mean, it was a fight at every turn. Anyone who lives in a home that's not brand spanking knows that, you know, you've got to maybe redo the plumbing. You have to redo the pipes.
Sure.
You have to redo the air conditioning, or you have to put air conditioning in. You have to redo the heating. And you have to redo all the electrical and maybe fix some windows, this and that. Well, this was Max Factor's 42,000 square foot factory where he manufactured all of the very famous makeup products.
Oh.
So not only to the public, but also what he put on movie stars and was worked on at the different studios. You know, it's in this very building in the lobby, and I'm so thrilled we visited the museum because in this lobby, what's exciting is that it looks exactly like it looked in 1935. And it's in this very lobby where Max Factor turned around the public's thought about how indecent and how immoral it was for women to wear makeup. And so he got high society ladies to come in and to try his makeup, and as long as it was prudently worn and prudently applied, it was okay. So if you put a little eyeshadow on and some eyeliner and very little rouge and some lipstick and maybe a little face powder, you were okay. Because in those days, in the 30s, they called women who wore makeup that were not dancing on stage or in front of the camera, they called them hussies. And that was the vernacular for a prostitute in the 30s. That was the term that they used. So Max Factor was able to get around that, and he did that in this lobby of the Max Factor building where now all the visitors to the Hollywood Museum must enter through. And we've had a lot of fun. We've restored it to look just like it did in 1935 when he opened the doors. And there's the world-famous makeup rooms, the Redhead's Only Room, where Lucille Ball received her signature red hair. You know she was not born a redhead, contrary to popular belief.
Oh.
You know, and her daughter, Lucy Arnaz, told me, no, Mom had what she called mousy brown hair. And, you know, the Blondes Only Room, it's really kind of fun because I cannot tell you how many celebrities and their children and relatives do come to the museum and love to share stories about their family members having come to the Max Factor building and having been made up by Max Factor or Max Factor Jr.
And in the makeup room you mentioned, you have a fair collection of that history, right? Like those.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Wasn't there manuals and some sort of beauty measuring device? Am I correct?
Oh, my goodness. Good for you. You know, Jimmy, that's pretty amazing the beauty calibrator.
That's what I'm sorry, the beauty calibrator, yeah.
Yes, and we put that in the brunettes only room, and that's for all the great brunettes, you know, whether it was Joan Crawford or Elizabeth Taylor, you know, so many of them had gotten their looks there. Not to say that they were not beautiful to begin with, but Max Factor heightened their beauty or created their look for a specific film, you know. And in the blondes only room, I mean, it's where Marilyn Monroe became a blonde. I mean, and so many people tell me, but I thought Marilyn Monroe was born a blonde. And yes, she was. But like most natural blondes, by the time she hit her teen years, her hair turned dark, and her hair got darker. In fact, the first time she was married, when she was about 16 years old, it shows that she had light brunette hair. She was a brunette. So, but it was in the blondes only room where Max Factor gave her the blonde hair color that we recognized her in all her films. And how he came about that, which is interesting, is that Marilyn Monroe told Max Factor her favorite movie star was Jean Harlow. And Max Factor, as the story is told, smiled broadly from ear to ear. He really grinned because, you know, he created Jean Harlow's blonde hair, and he called it platinum blonde. Jean Harlow was the first movie star to wear his new hair color, platinum blonde. Jean Harlow was a blonde, but Max Factor chose to heighten her blondness to make it more racy and stand out in the black and white films. So when you look in a black and white, her platinum blonde hair is almost white. It looks white.
I'm telling you, this place is huge. They have 4 floors of the most extensive collection of Hollywood memorabilia in the world. I've been there a couple times, and one day is never enough for me to see everything. It's too easy to get locked down into 1 or 2 things when there's so much history surrounding me. My kids and I really love the Dungeons of Doom downstairs, filled with an eerie creepiness that haunts over you as you check out real costumes and props from your favorite horror movies and shows. I'm talking about The Walking Dead, Freddy Krueger, Jason, Chucky, Boris Karloff's Mummy, Vampira, Frankenstein and his bride, Elvira, E.T., Annabelle, Aliens, and there's so much more. I can't even tell it all right now. We even walked through the actual prison corridor set used in The Silence of the Lambs, and I genuinely got scared at the Hannibal Lecter jail cell. It's filled with authentic props from the movie, but I'm not going to spoil it for you. You're going to just have to see what's so scary about it for yourself. All that being said, Donelle tells me that the basement has much more of a layered history than just scaring people.
Now, my godmother, her father was a vaudeville star, and her mother was one of the original 5 Spanish land grant families here in California. So they would come down from their home up on the hill, and sometimes they would bring my godmother with her. And because of course there was nothing like, if you're under 18, you can't come in. It didn't exist in those days.
Right.
And so they'd bring her and they'd park her in a booth. And she, when I brought her to see the museum, or to see the building before we started the museum, and I was thinking about purchasing it, I asked her, and she said, you know, Donelle, there was another way that we came down here. There was a door. And I said, really, Marianne? She said, yes, I remember it plain as day. Well, if my godmother was alive today, she'd be well over 100 years old. So she said, I know there's a door. And we went back upstairs to the main floor on the first level, and we went to the front door, and she said, no, it's not there. Now there's another front door that was used for the executives, because originally this was Max Factor's makeup studio, as well as where all the makeup was manufactured upstairs, as well as the executive offices. So we went to the second front door. We walk in that door, and she said, you know, this is what it is, but she says the door's not where it's supposed to be. So she starts knocking on the walls. And if any one of your listeners is in the construction business, or a contractor or a carpenter, they would know that sometimes when doorways are filled in, you can hear a little hollow sound when they put drywall on the side of it. And sure enough, you could hear the different sound when she knocked on the wall. You could find the original opening. and that original opening had been closed and it was now used on the other side of the wall, was used as a closet. That closet backed up to the back stairs that went down to the lower level where it's the Dungeon of Doom today. So we solved a great mystery. We know how people went down to the bowling alley and speakeasy during Prohibition days.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of fun. This building, the Max Factor building, if these walls could talk, it would just be phenomenal to think all these great actors and actresses.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Golden years, what they would say.
Do you know? Are there any pictures that exist of that bowling alley and speakeasy? Has anything survived time from that?
There are a few, and they are hard to come by, but there are a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
Quite something.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually very elaborate down there. Quite amazing.
I bet.
My godmother, she remembers, before it was popular to be a Shirley Temple, she remembers drinking ginger ale with a cherry, and it was a little cherry juice. Her parents would park her in the booth, and they would be dancing or bowling, and she said she couldn't understand. She always thought her parents, gosh, they're so addicted to coffee. They've got coffee cups in their hands the whole time. It was because they were drinking homemade bootleg gin that was made in the back of the annex area of the building, where today it's Mel's Drive-In. And so, so many fun stories.
Thanks, Donelle. And
thank you, Jimmy.
And thank you, Donelle, for sharing a little bit of your vast knowledge of Hollywood history. I'm already looking forward to our next chat. And also thanks to the Hollywood Museum in the historic Max Factor building, home to more than 10,000 authentic showbiz treasures. You can check them out at 1660 North Highland Avenue, right on the corner of Hollywood Boulevard in Los Angeles, California. Check them out on the internet at thehollywoodmuseum.com. They're also on Twitter and Instagram at Hollywood Museum. Tune in next time for Hollywood History with Donelle.
Let me take you to our leader. The leader of the Dodge Rebellion. The name is Charger, Dodge Charger. The first full-size fastback. Rebellious new ideas. Watch. Hideaway headlights. Taillights across the board. 4 contour bucket seats. Full-length center sports console. Back buckets down. Cargo space up. Power V8. Custom features from every point of view. Don't you just wish you could own a dream car like this? You can. The new Charger is at your Dodge dealers now. The Dodge Rebellion wants you.
When last we left our hero, Burt Ward was cornered by a lifelong fanboy. An excellent question from Jimmy. Burt handling things like a pro, but will he be able to escape by answering all of Jimmy's questions? Wait, the worst is yet to come.
In any event, on that particular scene that you're talking about,
mm-hmm.
you gotta, first of all, understand, the actors that came onto the scene, the guests, they loved doing Batman. Why did they love it? Many reasons. Number one, if they had families, their kids were driving them crazy. Dad, you got to go on Batman. You got to go. That's the greatest show. You got to go. They were so pressured to come on our show, the biggest of the stars. But they wanted to anyway. But one of the reasons they wanted to is that unlike being locked into a specific character, okay, I mean, with a limitation, of being, realistic,
mm-hmm.
they could be bigger than life. I mean, the Joker's laugh, Cesar Romero, he could make it as broad and as big, and Frank Gorshin as the Riddler, and Julie Newmar as Catwoman, and Burgess Meredith the Penguin, and Vincent Price as Egghead.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of these actors were getting an opportunity to do something they never got to do before, which was make it as big and broad as they wanted to, and they loved it. So, coming to this particular situation, this was at the end of the episode. It wasn't the end of the film, but it was what would have been the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have this gigantic egg fight with Egghead at Old McDonald's farm.
Right, exactly.
I know, Old McDonald's farm. Well, I sort of started it. Let me tell you why I started it. Because we got hundreds of dozens of eggs that we could throw, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it would be fun because I was a pitcher in high school. Okay, I used to pitch baseball, hardball, so I was really good at throwing. So I could control where I was throwing it. And sure, when we started doing this big scene, this is before the scene that I'm talking about. We did this wide angle scene they wanted to get first.
Right.
Well, I purposely threw some eggs at the crew.
Aha.
Okay, and I was hitting them with eggs while we were trying to film, right? And they stopped and they said, "Burt, what are you doing?" "Oh, it was an accident. I was throwing these eggs and just sort of slipped," right? Well, let me tell you, the crew started throwing eggs at me. Okay, this is okay, and it was I had a great time. Okay,
okay.
Well, that I think is what doing that, and they saw both Vincent and Adam saw me doing that. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
That got them to be a little playful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here was the scene that I think you're referring to. That what it is Egghead gets Robin, captures Robin, and it's got me like in a neck hold, not a choke hold, but he's got his arm around my neck holding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
mm-hmm.
And Batman comes in to save me, and they have some dialogue. Okay, before, and then there's a big fight. All right. Well, what it is that when Batman comes in, Egghead starts breaking eggs on my head. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so Batman says something like, "All right, Egghead, it's the end of the line for you," or something like whatever it was in the dialogue.
Sure.
And Egghead said, "Oh yes, there's something that breaks an egg on my head." Then Batman has a line. Then Egghead breaks another egg on my head. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So there's
yeah.
3 eggs getting broken on my head. Now these are real eggs. There's nothing fake here.
Right.
These are real eggs. Okay. And the 3 eggs get broken, and then the fight starts. Okay. Well, what Adam and Vincent Price did is that they purposely goofed up their lines. But they made it so the 3 eggs were broken on my head before one of them made a mistake with their lines. So this took like, I don't know, 8 or 9 takes. I mean, I had more than a dozen eggs broken on my head. And I'll tell you something. Even though it doesn't hurt, it still stings a little bit.
Sure.
And I had eggs going down the inside of my cape, into my T-shirt, all the way down into my undershorts. Sticky eggs.
Ready to get...
Oh, they loved it. They thought that was so fun. Well, if you watch the show, what you'll see is that when the final shot that they use, I'm supposed to pick up half a dozen eggs and kind of just go over and throw them at Egghead.
Right.
Throw them at him. Well, I didn't do that. I picked up a dozen eggs. I was so mad at them. Okay, and you can see it.
Right.
I went jumped on top of him. I hit him so hard with those dozen eggs that it actually moved the egg on his head.
Yes, indeed.
That
Yeah.
egg. I hit, and then I rubbed it in. See that? It's right there in the filming.
You can, yeah. And without the background knowledge, you might not even know what was going on. But yeah, you definitely are leaning into that a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, boy, Rob's really, really rough with him,
Mm-hmm.
And it was real because I was so mad about their little joke. Okay, but that really did happen.
Yes. I wanted to know about your work with your foundation. You used to be known as the Caped Crusader. Now you like to be called the Canine Crusader.
Tell people I've gone to the dogs, literally.
Right.
But actually, it's all kind of tied together now because, it's so funny. Here, for all the years I did the Robin, and yet I've also done the more recent movies, animated, with my voice on it,
mm-hmm.
And then the star in Hollywood Boulevard, and then my guest appearance just a few months ago in December on Supergirl, okay?
Crisis on Infinite Earth.
Infinite Earth, right. But at the same time, people say, well, I don't understand. How did you get involved with rescuing dogs? Well, my wife and I operate the largest giant breed dog rescue in the world called Gentle Giants. And we've rescued more than 15,500 dogs. Every one of these 15,500 would have been put to death if we hadn't rescued them. And we didn't just take them and put them in some yard or some building. Every one of these 15,500 dogs has lived in our house with us during the last 25 and a half years. We always had a minimum of 50 in our house, and still do. A minimum at 50 or more at all times, 24/7, 365 for 25 and a half years, and a total of 15,500 some odd dogs. And because these were the giant breeds that we rescued, because the person who had been rescuing them had died, and all these dogs were being put to death if people had to give them up. And we thought it was such a terrible injustice that back in 1994 we started rescuing them. In fact, I said to my wife, Grayson, I said, honey, we can't let these dogs die. Even if it's just for a couple of weeks till we find somebody else to take this over. We can't let them die. She said, okay. Well, it's been 26 years now, and we still haven't found somebody to take over the rescue. I mean, I thought it was going to be 2 weeks. It's been 26 years. Anyway, all these dogs have lived in our house, and because they have traditionally, the larger ones have shorter lives, those that we didn't adopt, that we lost, died, it was so devastating to us, that we decided we were going to try to find a way to help them live longer. And we first developed a feeding and care program. It's what we call our Gentle Giant Special Feeding Care Program, that actually, if your listeners follow what we do, and they can find it right on our website, GentleGiantsDogFood.com. They go there, and the menu at the top of every page, they go to that section that says Special Feeding and Care Program. They can add 3 to 5 years minimum to the life of their dog just by the way you care for them and feed them. How do we find this out? Because just imagine if you live with 15,500 dogs over 26 years, 24 hours a day. I mean, even the most not sharpest person would have learned something.
You're bound to learn something.
You can't help but not learn. So in any event, we did that, and then we created this food called Gentle Giants that we now have at stores all across the country, in Walmart, now in Target, just started recently in Target. And again, we take no money for this. We don't take any salary. This is all about loving animals. So we made what we felt was the finest dog food in the world, and we believe it's true because, to my knowledge, no one else in the world has dogs living up to 27 and a half years, running around like puppies in their mid-20s. And of the more than 50 dogs that we have here now in our rescue, more than half of them have already lived twice their normal lifespan. This is real. This is not made up.
Right.
This is not, it's the real thing. And it's our charity. We take nothing from it. And all we want are these beautiful, wonderful animals that are what people call man's best friend, to live to their full potential, which is to their mid to late 20s, not the 8, 9, and 10 years old that so many are living. And people say, well, how can you do this? Have you discovered the fountain of youth? And the answer is no. We haven't discovered the fountain of youth. What we have discovered, though, is that other dog food companies put fat into their dog food because it makes dogs hungrier to eat more food. In other words, if you may remember 10 years ago when a man named Morgan Spurlock went into a McDonald's, ate every meal at that McDonald's for a month, he gained 55 pounds and almost died. They made a movie about it called Super Size Me. It's the same principle. Dog food, of all the ones that I've looked at, are full of fat, both on the inside and greasy on the outside. Just your listeners, tell them, go feel their dog's food. Feel that slightly greasy feeling. Well, you wouldn't put bacon grease down your garbage disposal because unlike water that evaporates, animal fat coagulates. And when it hardens, you'd be buying a new garbage disposal. So when you realize that animal fat coating dog food will ruin a metal garbage disposal, what do you think is happening to the arteries and intestines of dogs when every single meal, every single bite, every single kibble is encapsulated in animal fat? We don't do that. Our food is pure nutrition with no fat. So the point of it is that because of what we've done, done, and we take no money from it. So our dog food actually retails for about half the price of what you pay in a pet store. In fact, our motto is half the price, twice the life. Our food has become enormously popular, not just in the United States, but also in Canada. It constantly is sold out in all the 407 Walmarts in Canada. And anyway, but what we want to do is we don't want to take anything from it. We just want people who love their dogs to be able to keep them longer. And I got to tell you, it's so funny because there are some people who say, oh my gosh, you and your wife have become so nuts about dogs. Why don't you do something for people? And I say, wait a minute. If I help you keep your dog an extra 5 or 10 years longer, don't you think I've done something for you as well? And they go, oh yeah, well, I never thought of that. That's our charity. And our lives have become charity. And it's so funny because now there's so much Batman stuff, and I have this wonderful relationship with Warner Brothers, and I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of things in the future that I can't talk about now. But it all kind of works together. You know, on Batman, we were saving Gotham City citizens. Now we're saving a different kind of canine citizen. You know, so it.
But for real.
It's not that I've ever changed. Yeah, it's so funny because people say to me things like, "Well, you know, when you started doing those animated movies and the character again, was it hard to get back into the character?" I said, no, because if you know what happened in the series, when I was selected out of more than 1,100 young actors, the producers came to me and said, Burt, we've chosen you because in our minds that if there really was a Robin, forget television for a minute, if there really was a Robin, that you personally would be it. So we don't want you to, quote, take on this character. This character is you. We want you to be yourself and be enthusiastic. And that's all I did for 120 episodes. So it's not like anything ever left me. You know, so if people, if they call and I answer the phone, they say, gee, you sound familiar, you know, and they're trying to figure out, you know, I mean, or gee, you sound like yourself, you talk like yourself, or whatever. And of course, because it was me. It wasn't some character that I was taking on.
Mm-hmm. And that informed future incarnations of that character, with as far as the youthful enthusiasm and all that, we can't overlook the holy aspect of what you've brought to yeah.
Over 400 of them when you count the Batman movie, 380 in the series, but in addition to that, you know, there's been a whole resurgence in the last 10 years. You have this whole Batman 66 comic book series. You know, you have all this Batman merchandise where they change. You know, if you look at the original character, he had like kind of curly hair. Well, if you look at the Batman 66 merchandise that people have, every item you can imagine, from T-shirts, the toys, the Batmobile, everything. They changed the character to look like me.
Yeah.
They changed the character. So, and it just goes on and on and on. And there's people love the show. It's in reruns all over the United States. It's in a number of countries in reruns. And there's a special fondness that people have about Batman. And one of the nicest things that I remember, I was doing an interview with a writer from the New York Post, and he wrote the nicest thing about there could never have been another Robin like what Burt Ward did. And I think it was because I was not acting. When I went out there, okay, Adam and I, we played it. I mean, we did play it. We became it, you know. And I love fight scenes because I'm a black belt in karate. I could hardly wait for the fight scenes, you know. And there were some times where it got pretty rough because the stuntman sometimes weren't very good with their punches. If I got hit by a punch, believe me, they got hit back. I mean, there's some pretty realistic fight scenes on Batman, all of which I love.
And speaking of fight scenes, don't you hold the distinction of having the first on-screen fight scene with Bruce Lee? Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, here's an interesting thing, piece of trivia, that in addition to Bruce Lee's first film fight scene of his career was fighting me, that Bruce and I were actually friends separate of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived in the same cluster of condominiums. And that during the series, this is when, his wife Linda and they had their son Brandon. Brandon was at the time only 6 months of age. That we would go down into Chinatown to have dinner. And because Bruce had lived in Hong Kong for 10 years, I mean, he had all this custom stuff made by the restaurant that they would not even on the menu. So I was tasting all these delicacies that, I would never have expected to have. But we were friends, and we actually sparred together, which is the fighting that you do. You pull punches, still very rough, okay? And we had a lot of fun. It was a good friendship that we had, and it was for me later on. I mean, of course, we lost Bruce, and it was a terrible loss. I was so sad about it, but actually a few years ago, in 2015, I was inducted into the International Karate and Kickboxing Hall of Fame.
Oh.
Tremendous honor. I have a huge, beautiful plaque, and it was a big event in Las Vegas, and it was just a great honor. But so I've got a lot of wonderful memories from the show. I mean, there was also some memories of how dangerous it was because I ended up in the hospital 4 out of the first 5 days in the emergency hospital with, second-degree burns, a broken nose. I mean, it was more dangerous then than it is today to make television shows.
Well, yeah, live. Of course, I wasn't there. I didn't live through it, but I can only imagine it was a little more fast and loose back then, and probably a lot of safety procedures we have in place today are as a result of what happened to you on the set.
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example. On one day, that this is from the Riddler show. It was the first show with Frank Gorshin and Jill St. John. The Riddler makes a death.
Hey, diddle diddle.
Yeah, and then supposedly Maul, who was Jill St. John, puts this mask on and the costume and my costume because the Riddler captured Robin and tries to make Batman believe that it's really Robin, when it's really her, and he takes her back thinking it's me, and go back into the Batcave, and there's a big scene there, and then she ends up falling into the atomic pile and gets killed. But in any event, when they had this thing where I am captured, and then Batman realizes that obviously I'm still, being controlled by the Riddler, so he goes back to rescue me, and there's a scene where he breaks through the subway wall, supposedly a subway, and the studio was supposed to build a breakaway set. That's where they used balsa wood. It's that very light thing that, it looks like real wood, but it's just so fragile it just comes apart. You know what I mean? And they and then they use what they call a magnesium charge, which is extremely loud and extremely bright. It's like a big explosion, and it's extremely hot. I mean, you could be severely burned by that. But in any event, the idea was they were going to set this charge as though Batman used dynamite or, to break through the subway wall to rescue me. Well, anyway, the long and short of it is the studio forgot to build a breakaway wall. They built the subway like you build a house with 2x4s, right? Now you've got no time. It takes 3 weeks to rebuild that wall as a breakaway wall with all the crew and everything had to be finished. So what did they do? Well, the special effects guys, in their infinite wisdom, which I use the words very loosely,
right,
to use 2 half-sticks of dynamite, real thing, and they nearly blew this entire soundstage down. And I remember a 2x4. I'm tied down, my arms to my side, and the 2x4 comes down and hits me on the bridge of the nose, breaks my nose. Had to go to the emergency hospital. I mean, and I tell people that, I should have suspected something was wrong when it's 7:30 in the morning, as I'm tied down and these special effects guys are loading the charges, that you can smell liquor on their breath.
Yeah.
That's always a bad sign.
That should be a clue, right? Yeah.
There you go.
We were talking earlier about your award ceremony for the Hollywood for your star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and then we had that part, the Batusi party. But what kind of stuck out for me most on what could have been your day, a pretty much big celebration of you, and what arguably should have been, you and your wife Tracy took some time out to celebrate other people and gave out an award, the Superheroes to the Rescues Award.
Right.
Right.
And Tracy found some really unique people that do things. As an example, she gave away 4 awards, but just as an example, here was a young man that a big Batman fan, that he dresses up as Batman. He got himself a Batman costume. He dresses his dog as Robin. And I get the feeling he's not wealthy at all. He's just a regular person, but he's a pilot, and he rents an airplane and flies to various states, picking up dogs from shelters that were going to be put to sleep, and flying them to other states where they could be into a person's home. In other words, like you could have an animal shelter in Paducah, Kentucky, that's got these dogs that they weren't able to adopt, and they're going to put them to sleep, and there's nobody locally there that wants to take those particular dogs, but somebody in Texas was willing to take them, and he would take his airplane. He flies the airplane in a Batman costume. The dog is in the passenger as Robin. Okay, I mean, he's got the video of that. Well, you were there, you saw it.
Right.
And then he goes and he goes to the animal shelter as Batman. He gets those dogs. He gets them in the plane. He flies as Batman to the location, turns them over. I mean, what an amazing thing. He probably spends his last dollar doing that.
Yeah.
It's his charity. He's not wealthy, but he finds a way to get by and get it done. And it's that kind of real and superhero, to me, effort that he makes that needs to be rewarded. And he was so thrilled when he gave him the award, and we had videotaped and stuff. It just turned out really, really great. And we had other people that we gave awards to, and it just was a very special day for us because, again, for us, it's more about the giving than the receiving. I mean, I have all the toys and things that I can play with, and my wife and I now are focused on what can we do to make a better world for all of us.
Yeah, like I said, that's what really, for that whole day, obviously it was different for you, but for me, that's what, in the midst of everything, your ceremony, that party, the big Batusi party, in the midst of everything, you guys took out time and not even took out time, but made a celebration to celebrate other people who are doing especially good work for the community and for the animals and stuff. So I that's really impressive.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I know Tracy would appreciate it, and I appreciate it.
Yes, I know she worked really hard on that as well, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the thing is, she dresses up as Robin's girl. As her Robin's girl outfit. Okay? And she's just into this so great, and she's always coming up with more ideas for more charitable events and this and that. And it's fun. I mean, I'm telling you, I think she has more energy than me, though. Even when I was playing Robin, and I'm known for having boundless amounts of energy, but I think she has more than I ever had.
Well, from the first time you said "Holy Barracuda" to the last time you said "Holy Crimson Skies of Death" on Crisis on Infinite Earths, recently you've done the cartoons, the Return of the Caped Crusaders. You've done so much in your entire career, the show, the movies, the animated series, Adventures of Batman. What do you think maybe is left in the future for Burt Ward?
Oh, the best way to describe it is to describe a scene from one of our episodes where Commissioner Gordon calls Batman and Robin into his office. Okay, this is for the Batman movie we did. If you remember the movie with the 4 villains.
Of course.
Where he has a line, and he says to Batman, Commissioner Gordon says, Batman, he said, any one of these 4 heinous villains could wreak havoc on Gotham City. But the idea, the concept of them joining together, the 4 of them, what do you think they have in mind? You know, and Batman very stoically says, I think their minimum objective is the entire world.
That's it. The minimum objective.
So that is our minimum objective, the entire world.
That's great, and I'm sure you can do it with between you and Tracy. You definitely got the energy. I don't think that should be a problem. Really quick, one more question before I let you go. When I was a little shaver fighting crime, I would sit down for my Saturday morning bowl of cereal in the syndication. I'd watch Batman and Robin, you and Adam fighting crime. So I'm wondering, when you sit down, whenever you have your relaxing time, whether it's Saturday morning, and enjoy a big bowl of cereal, what is your favorite cereal?
Oh, my gosh. Well, that is a great question. That is a really great question. But in all honesty, there was a cereal that I ate as a child. It was actually, I think, more of an adult cereal, and it was Grape Nuts.
Great.
I always liked the Grape Nuts. Everybody said, "Oh, well, there's no sugar in there, and bitter, and all of this kind of stuff." But I actually like that, and that brings back fond memories, of my childhood growing up eating that cereal.
That's a very serious cereal for a very funny and charming guy, Burt. I want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for helping us celebrate 80 years of Robin and sharing your memories. And especially thank you for adding a certain air of legitimacy to our first episode of the Retro Cool Nerd Powcast. Do me a favor to give your wife, say hello to your wife Tracy for me, and I hope you guys are staying safe and clean and everything's going well for you.
Well, okay, and I'd like to conclude with this saying, to the Batmobile!
Yes! Thanks, Burt. You're the best.
Holy elongated career, that guy has seen a lot, huh? What a life. Do me a favor, please check out Burt and Tracy's dog rescue efforts online at gentlegiantsdogfood.com. They truly do a lot of good work there, and if you get a chance, check them out. gentlegiantsdogfood.com. I also want to thank my good friend Donelle Dadigan from the Hollywood Museum for sharing that wonderful look into the secrets of Tinseltown. I bet you might not have known about that speakeasy located in the bottom of the Max Factor building. Pretty cool, huh? I look forward to Donelle joining us each and every episode to share stories and secrets from the vintage days of Tinseltown. Well, citizens, I want to thank you for joining me on the journey through our very first pilot episode of the Powcast. I think you're really going to enjoy my showgram celebrating all things retro, cool, and just a little nerdy. I am Jimmy the Gent. You can dig me on social media at SDBatman66 or at Retro Cool Nerd. Also check us out over at RetroCoolNerd.com. Special thanks to Burt, Tracy, Donelle, Marquis, Grimshay, Saturday Morning Serial Studios, Roger, and my family for suffering through this madness, and most of all, each and every one of you citizens that listen to my fever dream brought to life. This has been a Saturday Morning Serial production. Don't forget to tune in next time. Same POW channel, same Powcast. You ready to go, Burt?
To the Batmobile!
Yes.